Hello. Well, let's see. We'll start streaming on Twitch, and we're in the classroom, and we'll just play it by ear. I'm sure a lot of people are busy with all sorts of projects and whatnot and things and stuff, it being the end of the semester. So that is part of the challenge at this point. Everyone is worried about other classes and things, and I've been too nice all semester, and so of course everybody's like, just working on their projects on their own. I would like to circle back, make sure I touch base with everybody who is in class. Let's see, I'll keep an eye out for direct messages. Nope, no direct messages yet regarding whether or not people are available for their, kind of one-on-ones. It has been kind of vague, so we'll work out how that factors into things. Otherwise, we'll be kind of playing it by them up to Friday night, so they have to be done for Saturday morning. Friday night at midnight, Saturday morning, I'm going to start grading, and I think I have to get my grades in pretty quickly after that. So hoping that will be the case, that everything will be there and ready to go. So let's see. Good. A few people, or at least one person joining in. That's always good to have at least one person attending. So to give one bit of extra information, make today sort of fun. Okay, a couple of people. That's good. That's good. I did want to add at least one new last thing. I'm not going to add anything at all new the last day of lecture, but I wanted to bring this in and to kind of go full circle a bit. Now, if you recall, early on in our very, very first project, one of the things we had interactive audio. Move and change position. Now, this might be slightly interesting. Let's see. Hopefully, this will come through with Twitch and everything. That's going to be the challenge here. Let's see if let me first off see. You may very well get the right screen up here, and the idea is, if hopefully this works correctly, is that we want to have audio in our game, potentially, that also will interact with the player ticking sound in my project here under assets. I just dragged into the same directory, and it's wound up in scripts. That's not a great place for it. So let's drag it at least up one here. So it's in the main assets folder. It should be probably create a sounds folder for this. And it is a clock ticking sound. Let's see if anyone can hear that. Well, I can't hear it either. So let's assume that nobody can hear that, but let's start the game in here and let's see if you can hear audio playing. No, I can't either. All right, let's see if we can get this working. Now, first off, could very well be, let's switch. I'm trying to play this through this headset. Let me turn up the volume. Okay, my headset is working. Question is, why is my clock ticking not sounding? There we go. I can hear it. And let's double check on Twitch. Oh, Twitch, you're going to hear. This is why this is problematic. Okay, for those of you, I'm going to have to, let's see, the audio will come through correctly on Twitch, but it's not going to be coming necessarily correctly unless I switch over. I'm going to switch over to screen sharing and to normal screen sharing, and maybe that will help here. Hold on. All right, and I'm going to turn off my video for a moment. Now, let's see if you are hearing this. Can anyone let me know if they hear that? Oh, I didn't share the window. I thought I did. Screen. Oh, okay. We'll give it a try here. Screen. Change windows. Screen. No, that was application that I switched here. That was. Let's see. I'll try it again. Let's see. Buy it platformer. Try this one more time. All right. How about now? Anything? This should be in Discord. In the other ones, All right. I'm going to describe how this works. And we'll have to use it from there. Maybe you can follow along, and I'll create yet another video and I'll post it up. It's kind of difficult to do this live and stream the audio live. Obviously, Unity is doing all kinds of interesting things there, trying to share that screen. So I'm going to switch back. Yeah, that's what Windows within the interface, which is why it looks that way. So let's see here. Let's see if this is any, I don't think this is going to be any better. Let me double check one more thing here. All right, I'm going to try one thing here. This is, wish me luck. Let's see. Let me know if you can hear this. The danger is that I don't think I can hear that. All right. One, two. Okay. Hopefully you're back to hearing me. I'm going to explain how this works. Okay, I'll explain how it works, and I'll have to leave it as an exercise. Unless I can draw, I can do a separate video and post it for you. This is certainly not required, but let me show you how this works. Now, when you place an audio source, like you'll see in here in my scene, I do have a couple of things. I have this clock ticking, which is a null object, just an empty object, that all it has on it is an audio source. Okay. Now, audio sources, normally we've been placing audio sources and we have not, we've just, you know, they're just there all the time. They're just stereo audio sources, and you play them as if you're underneath the stereo pan and spatial blend and so on. There are these 3D sound settings. Now, if you look, this spatial blend, now this is going to be basically controlling the level of this sound according to how close the player is to that sound source. So what you'll see as I start the game, and again, I apologize, you won't be able to hear this necessarily, but hopefully you should be able to see line moving over here. And the line is changing. The volume mix is changing according to how close the player is to that object, or to that position, to that component. Whoops. And all right. So what'll happen is I'll jump here and you'll see now I'm basically right on top of this audio source, almost exactly on top. So I'm hearing it at full volume right now. Okay. And if I move away from it, it will drop off to some minimum value and I won't be able to hear it anymore. All right. So that's a way of having dynamic sound sort of automatically. And all you really need to do is to turn this spatial blend. Now you see as this comes back down again, if I turn that down, then I'm not going to hear any difference. You'll probably still see, I think we'll still see the tracking there here. Yeah, you can still see that happening, but it's not gonna, you're not gonna hear that sound because it's basically blending it out here. You can turn, close the 3D settings if you want. Now, when that is on, when Spatial Blend is up like that, one of the cool things you can certainly do, in addition to placing an object on, or placing a audio source on a fixed object, you can also have it that audio sources can be on moving objects. Now, this saw right here that's flying back and forth, you'll notice here also has an audio source on it. Okay, so now that audio source is moving, and you can see now that the position of the listener, the distance from the listener to that audio source, is also changing as that moves, right? So we can use this to have this buzzsaw kind of, again, it's just a ticking sound in my case here, which unfortunately you're not able to hear, but it's moving back and forth as it gets closer. You'll see it's right over its head, it's the loudest, and then it will go down again. Right? So that's a really cool thing to have, you kind of animate your audio. Now, to make this happen correctly, now you'll notice there it mentioned there the listener position. Now, normally in your scene, your main camera, if you go open your scene, your main camera will probably have the audio listener on it. It'll have an audio listener object on it. Okay. You can leave it there if the camera is always where the center, the center of attention is. Or what I did here is I deleted the audio listener from the camera, and instead I put it on, I thought I put it on, where is it here? Oh, sorry, nope. I moved it just a little bit. I didn't leave it on the camera. I put it on a game object that's a child of the camera, which seems like an odd thing to do, but I have my reasons. Let me explain the reason. Normally the camera is at -10, right? Now to do this, to demonstrate this, I'm going to show you, you have to zoom in into a rather unusual position here. Okay, so here's at a position where it is, it has a distance from the plane on which all this 2D stuff is happening. It is 10 units away. Now, if the audio listener is there, that means the audio listener is also 10 units away from potentially any audio sources. Okay, so what I did is I created this game object and I offset it by 10. So basically, I use that to move the audio listener onto that same plane as all of the audio objects and the player. Right. Now, what's going to happen immediately, because the player's action, the hero's action, controls the position of the camera. So immediately when I hit play, the camera starts, and the game object, the camera is moving according to the player. This is kind of a fun view. If you've never tried this, you should go ahead and do it so you can see your camera view and how your orthogonal projection actually looks in the world. And we can see that the game object that is the audio listener is directly on top of the player because I've set that Z offset. Right? If it's 0, it would be at -10, just like the camera. But being at 10, it counteracts, basically counteracts that offset of the camera. And this way, the sound happens correctly. Now, I could also, you can instead put the audio listener, if you wanted to, directly on the player. That's another option. And this way, your audio listener will move with the player. So that's the general case. You normally either want to have the audio listener on the camera or on the hero player object, right? And this way, one kind of thing I wanted to add, and unfortunately, like I said, because of the weird way that audio output works and trying to coordinate between YouTube and Twitch and Discord, it looks like the audio didn't come through, but I'll let you try that as an exercise, okay? So there's the audio listener and the spatial 3D sound settings here, okay? And I'll introduce one more thing for you with regards to audio. And again, this is a more advanced audio technique, and it's something we've seen a bunch of things, and there's been a bunch of things we really haven't paid much attention to. There is one, which is this output, and output normally says none audio mixer group, right? So it's just going to a generic, some audio listener, it goes to the audio listener, and then just it gets taken care of, right? Now, what you can do, there is more advanced audio mixing capabilities in Unity. You can, if you right-click your new audio mixer, and I can double-click on this, and this is a really, really simple audio mixer in that it only has the master group here. Now, those of you who are familiar with audio mixers, you might know about groups and sends and effects channels and all that sort of thing. So you can do things like, have subgroups that can mixed into the master. So if you have things that are like, oh, all of my background effects, you ever wonder in your game where you can like suddenly adjust the volume of all background effects without disturbing the volume of, say, the dialogue, or adjust all the sound effects and without changing the background music mix. Did I say that? You see a background music mix, your sound effects, and what am I thinking? Your dialogue. Usually those are the things that change, right? You have the sort of independent control of those, but they may also be spatialized, right? So it's tricky to control their volume all together if you wanted to actually have an overall level. So what you can do is, as you set up these audio sources, like in here, you can assign them to different audio mixers and groups within the mixer. So say this one, for example, maybe this new group should actually be named, let's see, where can I rename it here? Rename. This could be sound effects. And I might have one called background music, and which should be at that same level, right? And now you'll see I could control an overall volume of the sound effects channel and the background music channel and the total independently, right? So now as things played, you'll see here, hopefully, there's something going to the master channel, and there's something going to the sound effects channel. If I say edit in play mode, I can adjust this mix up here and so on. Okay. So that's what audio mixers are used for in there, right? So I'll leave that as a topic for you to explore, but like I said, I wanted to bring it to your attention, especially, if you're doing things in a game that require more elaborate, from here, you might be try to put things together, taking your project to sort of the next level. It's something to be aware of. Reverb zones that you can have in your game. So you can do things like, in your game, we could create an audio. You create a zone in which, as the player enters that zone, you can apply reverb settings. So if you have certain types of acoustics, maybe they enter a cavern, or they are underwater, or they are in a smaller room, you can change the way that audio sounds within that zone, according to where the position of the audio listener is, the audio source is, and so on. Right? So I can say, okay, audio sounds like it's in an auditorium if in this particular area. So we're going to add some echo, some reverb effect to that place there. All right, so that's something fun to try around with, to play around with, to be aware of. All right, so that was, like I said, that was the little bit I wanted to add. Just a little 20, 30 minutes worth of fun last minute stuff. I'm not going to be looking for that in the project. But since I do have the attention of a few, how big question is, of course, okay, should we have narration like in the last couple of games? For example, pop-up text that says, you found a key. That is up to you. You don't have to have any sort of pop-up narration or anything like that. This can be like in my game here. So what's now happening? Events, getting the jumping and grounding, having the programming techniques sort of in there. Boy, I've really kind of messed this up now with regards to, let's see, jump over moving spikes, having effectors. So it's always up to you with regards to the narrative piece of things. But using events is a good way to have narrative. So something does happen and you want to say, okay, I need to have and I have the announcement that, yes, you unlock the door, that sort of thing. That is certainly handy to do that with, but it is not required. It is very, very wide open in terms of the sort of design requirements. But what I do want to see, how basic can our animations be? Can make a character a basic square and be fine. Yes, if you're using, you can certainly make the argument that even if you are animating parameters as opposed to animating animations, that would be okay. Like for example, in here, all of that, they all start to swing in the game now. And they are all, technically, they are animated. Now, how are they animated? We'll go to here, or actually we'll fab for those. And you'll notice in here, there's this swing animation, which does not have something you can actually see. So in our, where are we here? Bayat Games. Where did that wind up? Oh, there it is. Somehow they wind up all being called anchor. So this animator controller, if I double click on it, and we'll look at this anchor 1, and so on. There is a animation here. And let's zoom that in. And you'll see there is an animation in here just called swing. Right, this animation. And all of this animation, all that it does is this object selected here. I need to open the prefab. There we go. This animation is animating the rotation of the anchor point. Okay. So it rotates back and forth, -45 to +45, and back to -45. So yes, this is an animation. That's probably the most basic an animation would be to animate parameters. So if you say, I used animations as part of to animate parameters, that would be fine. However, I would like to see, and I guess I should have been more explicit in this, but generally what people have demonstrated, this would kind of fall short here of what I would hope. If you are not doing anything to control the transitions here, right? Normally, in an animator controller, like say the animator controller for the actual player, so we'll jump back over here to the hero, you'll see that there are decisions being made using the state machine, the jumping animation. When the velocity is greater than 0.1 and it's grounded, the character runs. When it is animation, right? So the ideal scenario is that you don't have to get fancy with the art of it. So if your question is really about the art piece of it, don't have to be fancy about the art. You could, it could be a square that changes shape, or I'm not looking for anything fancy. Most of the time people use pre-made assets. But what I do hope that you're able to demonstrate is how to use the animator, how to use the animation, so create something on the timeline, whether it's kind of flipbook style animation or animation of a parameter, and also some indication that you understand how transitions and the state machine are used. You don't have to do something as elaborate as using blend states, or I've shown the blend states in some of the last ones, and even like here with this enemy up here, kind of what's going on in the game in reaction to the position of the player. So that I made that kind of interact with my coroutine. But you don't have to use blend trees if you don't want. That would be a more advanced animation technique. But I would like to see, certainly if you do use a blend tree, I would count that as a complex, you don't, like this would certainly count, even though there's a single state and there's no conditions on this transition here. By actually getting the blend state to work, that would be, kind of a more advanced thing. But generally, if you're doing something simple, that is, you're doing even a simple transition from one to the other based on some parameter. So you've done something more than just using a base state in here. If you haven't, I've been very generic about referring to use animation. So I wouldn't. I'm not going to weigh that real heavily on there. But if you're using the animation to show some sort of flipbook sprite style animation, or you're animating a parameter and so on, that's fine. That's fine. It doesn't have to be super elaborate. Just so you sort of understand how powerful it could be, perhaps. But I won't get really, really crazy about how that is. Right. Any other specific? Okay, I was asking because I've had a sprite that I've been using and I didn't. Make him appear green. So the animation, you could animate its color by creating an animation and then using a parameter. Is that what you mean? Or you could have an animation that just changes the. If you're just changing the color, that would be a really great use of animation. Certainly, you could demonstrate the techniques doing that, but that would be a little bit unusual. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Certainly, the changing state and having something that generally what we're really referring to animation here is something that takes advantage of this timeline, right? So ideally, I suppose what you could have, for example, if to the hero, that could be, oops. color shift anim. Let's try this. Let's see what happens here. So in here, you could say, well, okay, just to do this easily, I'm going to open up the sprite renderer and say that what I want to have happen, I'll enable that. I'll click on color here. I'll bring this back to this screen. And I'm going to say this is the normal color. I'm going to move this here to 20. There we go. All right, I'll bring this back. That again. So at 20 frames, I'm going to want it to shift. I think I can do this to here. All right. And then in another 20 frames, I'm going to have it shifting color back again. Right. So this would be kind of an interesting one. So if I play this animation, and it's looping over and over again. Now, if I were to play this animation in the game, like say I make this now in the animator, here's my color shift. I'm going to really break this, but so even color shift, you'll notice that if I look at this animation for this one, let's see, it's now, I can find it in here. I'll find color shift. Coin at color shift. You'll see it has said loop time. I could make it so that it doesn't loop time and have a certain animation that goes from white to red and then trigger that animation as part of an attack. And then when it's not attacking, it would go back to white or something like that. So there's no reason you necessarily have to animate artwork. So that's, if that's that, maybe that's confusing. And generally, the sort of animation we're talking about is motion type of stuff, whether it's be even a simple idle animation would certainly count as typical. But if you getting really into the punch and so on, that would be a little bit, wouldn't necessarily have to create your own art. Hopefully, I don't know. All right, so we should discuss this. If you have something that's already working, let me know. I'll be happy to take a look at it and say, give it the thumbs up or the sideways or something like that. Any other group questions? Anything else for the group? If not, I still would like to offer up that to make things as seamless and wonderful as possible. If you could, after watching this video, reach out to me through a direct message and just set up some time between, it could really be just about any reasonable time between now and on Friday, with the exception of Wednesday, because Wednesday I have a commitment to helping someone move. So Wednesday I will not be generally reachable. Feel free to send me direct messages and whatnot, but would like for you to kind of, to touch base with everybody in one way or another, ideally between now and the final submission, just to kind of clarify any issues, make sure there's no lingering questions about, does this count, does this not count, kind of somehow figure out, some tweaks and things to kind of make sure your project counts. If you're watching this after the fact, please do go and make sure, double check your LMS submissions. Just make sure, of course, I'm really always counting on an LMS submission having been made. So go back, double check your old ones if you haven't already checked your grades and stuff on there to make sure that you did make a submission on there. There are a few people that I'm assuming have, dropped the course or had some issues or some coordination and things, and that's fine. Life happens. Not too worried about that. Okay. Now-ish would be a perfect time to discuss things. That's perfectly fine as well. So what I'd like to do in that case, if nobody else is asking any questions, I'm going to stop the stream and kind of hopefully go over with people their projects, and I'll be available for Q&A from now until whenever. Okay. Let me quickly pop back over here. All right, there were no other questions, so I'm shutting down the screen sharing. All right, and in case I don't get to touch base with everybody online, it's been a pleasure, and hopefully we'll finish strong this semester, and hopefully maybe I'll see some of you online one way or another. And I know in computer graphics, people have asked about that, and it looks like a couple of people are taking that course, and hopefully see you around the internet at least. Take care. Hopefully enjoy the 1 week of breath before the fall semester starts up again. All right. Take care, everyone. I'll keep talking. Let's see. Stop streaming.